Last week, we showed you moving into our tiny house, and I mean just moving into our tiny house. It was complete chaos and barely livable. Honestly, we were basically camping in our own house. I was sleeping on a camping mattress on the kitchen floor. Brian was on our couch in the broken recliner, and nothing, I mean nothing, was functional. But this week, all that changed. But let me tell you, it was an exhausting week. During that week, this was our bedroom situation. Me on a camping mattress that started out in the kitchen, and by the end of the week, I was at least sleeping in the living room. Brian slept in our brand new but broken couch recliner that wouldn't close down all the way. All that time, we had the beautiful loft space with room for that king-size bed we've been dreaming about for 3 months, but we had one major problem. We knew the bed frame that we ordered, plus our 13.5-inch mattress, would be too tall for the loft. I mean, we didn't want to give ourselves concussions if we sat up too fast in bed, but we chose a wood frame so we could cut the legs to the height we needed. A neighbor offered to let us use his miter saw to cut off the frame legs. Apparently, he went through the same issue when setting up his loft bedroom, and after talking with other neighbors, this seems to be a common problem for tiny house owners. Finding a quality bed frame that's low enough to the ground, allowing for a regular thickness mattress. Brian joked that we cut off about $50 of wood per leg.
After about 6 nights of camping in our own house, we were ready to tackle this project. I opened the box, pulled out all the parts, and started putting it together without looking at the directions. After about 30 minutes, I realized that I put it together wrong. There was a specific order, the way the parts had to connect. Moral of the story, always read the directions first. Save yourself a do-over.
A neighbor stopped by to check on our progress.
Here's where I got creative. The middle brace came with 3 metal legs that were the same height of the legs we just cut off. Rather than cutting those, I remember I had a 2-inch wooden dowel that I managed to move with us from place to place to place. I measured and cut those to the size with a handsaw on the porch and totally MacGyvered it instead of using the included metal legs. Sometimes the best solution isn't the most obvious one.
When Brian was finished, he wanted to show me the completed frame. I went up to the loft to see which wall the head of the bed should go against. He preferred it against the window, but I had strong feelings about it. When I was 10, having a bed against the wall was fine, but as an adult, I prefer both sides be accessible, not just for making up the bed, but so I don't have to crawl in from the bottom like a kid. After a week of sleeping up there with the recommended configuration, Brian admitted I was right, and I love him for being willing to admit it. It was getting late, but we were determined to get those Helix mattresses up there to let them expand overnight. We wrestled them up the stairs while they were still vacuum sealed in their shipping boxes, and let me tell you, that was a great plan. And quite a workout. Brian joked that we got twin XL mattresses and 500 yards of saran wrap. Opening them and watching them puff up to full size was more entertaining than I probably should admit. We were pleasantly surprised that they didn't have any funky chemical smell at all, and they didn't need time to air out. But we were too exhausted to make the bed that night anyway. not even hitting my head. Like, we can sit up and not hit our heads. It's a good thing you took that 6 inches off the feet.
Good thing we cut it.
The next day, we brought up our freshly washed sheets and new blanket, made the bed, and looked forward to our first real night's sleep in months. Until I noticed the smoke detector directly above my head with its piercing green light that flashed every few seconds right through my eyelids. It took another week for us to take the battery out. One of our dogs is deathly afraid of that chirping noise, and we didn't want it to accidentally go off. But that first night of sleeping without that darn green light was amazing. But the bed wasn't the only thing that came together this week. We hung curtains on both porches, and the curtain rods, curtains, and ties that we found on Amazon gave us the privacy we needed. It's amazing how much more settled a space feels when you're not living in a fishbowl. We mounted this paper towel holder to the window frame to get it off of our limited counter space and installed this magnetic spice rack that freed up 2 entire small cabinets in our tiny kitchen. Every inch matters in 399 square feet. I tackled bathroom organization next with some cabinet organizers that I found on Amazon, and finally got everything functional instead of just existing in piles everywhere. Though clearly we still have a shopping list, a toilet paper holder is apparently still on the agenda for next week. Here's the thing, we're functioning now. We're sleeping like adults, we can cook, we have privacy, and we even successfully entertained some guests this weekend when my mom and Brian's friend came over for a visit. But we're not finished. We're still waiting on our carport to be built, our storage shed, stair railings to be painted, drainage issues to be addressed, an entry walkway solution, our skirting, our pet fencing for the girls, and we've got items in storage that need decisions made about them, which is apparently another common issue with new tiny home owners. One neighbor who has lived here for 4 years mentioned just the other day that he finally moved out of his storage unit. But you know what? We're not camping anymore. We stopped surviving and started functioning, and that feels like a massive win. The journey continues, but for the first time in months, we actually feel like we're home. If you're considering tiny house living, know that the transition from moved in to actually functional and then to settled takes time, patience, and a lot of problem solving. It isn't easy, but it's absolutely worth it. I'll link all the products that helped us get functional below if you're facing the same challenges we were. Let me know in the comments what part of this transformation surprised you most. And if you want behind the scenes details of this week, including the 9-hour customer service nightmare we dealt with, make sure you're subscribed to our newsletter. Thanks for figuring this out with us, and we'll see you next week.